Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Culper's Canteen Cup. This is episode 23. I'd like to give a shout out to Carlton Zeus for that great intro music. Check him out at carltonzeus.com or on iTunes. That's Apple. Check it out. He's good stuff. So I want to give a shout out to our listener in India or listeners in India. Hey, solidarity, baby. Keep the faith against the Chinese there in that valley. Don't take any of their bullshit. Our listener in France. Hey, man, keep the faith. Against those nasty Turks. But I'll give you a word to the wise. Don't side with the Russians in Libya. By the way, folks, I got called a globalist because I was interested in the conflict in Libya. First time in my life I've ever been called a globalist. I don't know if y'all caught the last episode 22. We talked about Jerry Cole. Do not forget his name, Gerald LaRue Cole. I don't know if you believe in Vishnu, Buddha, like Roger, Jesus, Allah, or Xenu. It was kind of crazy. We didn't even realize it until after the episode that it was episode 22. We did not plan that. 22 a day. The episode was dedicated to Jerry Cole, and we thought that was pretty cool. So maybe some of y'all caught on to that. If you did, you're smarter than we were. Real quick, talking about Jerry, give a quick plug to a book that we put out. Some of you have probably already bought it, and if you haven't, you need to get on Amazon as soon as possible. Book's written by A.J. Todd and Bucky Calhoun. That's a little inside baseball. That's me and Josh. So this book, basically, we just wanted to put it together. It's a group of short stories about our time in the military over the past 22, 23 years. And we wanted to dedicate the book to the memory of Jerry Cole. 50% of the royalties we earn on the book will be donated to the All Secure Foundation, founded by Tom and Jen Satterley. They focus on, helping special operations troops and their families in dealing with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. Let me tell you, check them out at allsecurefoundation.org. Buy the book. Proceeds are going to go to them. They're doing great work out there. Tom and Jen are tireless in their passion, drive, and determination to help out our warriors. So, y'all are already sick of listening to me talk. We've got a busy episode. We probably won't get to everything you guys want to hear, but Roger's got a special treat, apparently, for me and Josh. So I'm going to kick it over to him.
Hey there, Canteeners. And real quick, just to jump on Luke, buy the book. It's $13. It's entertaining. The proceeds go to a great cause. And at the end of the day, you're going to spend more money on shittier booze. So just, take the $13, set it aside, and purchase the book for some quick entertainment. So I think episode before last, we had the Battle of the Bulges. And I've noticed that we've kind of been a little quiet as far as status updates and who's winning and who's losing and this and that. So I wanted to throw something else in there. And this is new to Luke and new to Josh. So they haven't seen this yet. But I got a call today. I got a phone call. And I always know it's him because it says number unknown. So I answer the phone. He's like, hey, this is Will. So both you guys know Will. He is a longtime listener. Always provides some very good feedback and critiques over our podcast and finds them very entertaining. I tell you what's very important to me. The first thing he heard Jerry's podcast, and the first thing he said was thank you. He's like, I really enjoyed it, really brings it to light and just keeps him in memory. He was thinking about him the other day. So it's pretty big from one of our listeners. But he also heard the Battle of the Bulges, and he's actually from up in your neck of the woods, Apache Junction. Once they get annexed, I think he's actually in Gold Canyon, but Apache Junction is trying to annex him. So that's another story by itself. But he heard Battle of the Bulges, and he said he wanted to sweeten the pot a little bit. So I wasn't familiar with it at first, so I had to do a little bit of gurgling, and I'm pretty impressed. So I actually hope both of you fail. So the winner, as far as whoever loses the greatest percentage of body fat, and maybe we can do a status update here because both y'all, I don't know if the camera actually adds 10 pounds. Maybe it's 15 pounds in Josh's case, but I don't know if the camera actually adds weight or anything, but neither one of you guys look any thinner. Anyway, he said, it could be Josh's beard too, though, right? They say the beard adds another 5 pounds. So you're up at least 20. But he said to the winner, whoever wins this competition, he has already bought a bottle, and he sent me the picture, Highland Park Scotch, the light 17 year. And I would tell you this, I'm not a big Scotch drinker. I think Josh is probably a bigger Scotch drinker than I am. I know Chris that we've had on before is a big time Scotch drinker, but just doing some quick gurgling like through Total Wine, this is like a $400 bottle of Scotch. So whoever wins this thing is going to get this bottle. But here's the caveat, because both of you, I told him, I said, well, one thing, man, neither one of them look, any lighter. So they may have actually put on some weight. As Luke tells me every night, he's cooking like mac and cheese or whatever. And every night it's like the guy must eat like a pound of mac and cheese. So I said, well, what happens if they both gain weight, which could happen, right? So we decided to put a caveat on this thing. So I want to work my way into this as I do. So it's whoever loses the most weight as far as body fat percentage goes. But if both of you gain weight, then I get the bottle.
Deal.
Sounds fair, right?
Yeah.
So if you guys both gain weight, I get the bottle.
I'll come to your house and smash it into a million pieces.
That's fine. So anyway, that's what we agreed to anyway with Will. So that's the bet from here going forward. So just to add a little extra motivation. So with that being said, I know we have a lot on the agenda. We're going to touch the Electoral College, TikToks, and Black Lives Matter. But either one of you guys care to post a little update on your progression as far as weight loss?
I will. I'll go ahead. I know that deception tactics, it's not going to work on these guys, folks. These guys know me better than most anybody. So I tried to deceive the first 6 days. It wasn't working. They weren't buying into it. I just cleaned up my eating habits. Started slow. Didn't want to start, hitting the road, running right away. I wanted to lose a few pounds before I take it to my knees, so yeah, I just cleaned up the diet. I've been hiking and walking quite a bit, and I've dropped a little weight. I'm not going to say how much. I don't think that's fair. I think we should just say I've dropped a decent amount of weight for, I think this is day 12.
You should have to throw a number out there. You should have to throw a number out there. Think of it like quarters in a football game. So at the end of the first quarter, you know what the score is, right?
Consistently, I've lost 7 pounds. That's what I've lost, 7 pounds.
That's badass. Congratulations.
But I'm stuck on 7. I haven't lost any weight over the past 3 days. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. What about you, Josh? He's taking a big drink, folks.
Sorry, put on a pound.
I was in the middle of a sip of my my bourbon. So this New Riff single barrel, man, it's good. It's good. So I think right now, as of a couple of days ago, I lost 3.
Oh,
but I haven't done anything. All I did was, really clean up my diet. Right, I just cleaned it up, stopped snacking, and every time I walk through the kitchen, I stop and grab a handful of pretzels and stuff like that. So I just I've stopped doing that. Replaced that with grabbing an apple, in between breakfast and lunch and stuff. So I haven't started moving any iron around or anything. But
that kind of worries me. That worries me, Josh, because it's like, the slow and steady wins the race, right? So I feel like I dropped, a significant amount of weight quick, but you got the slow and steady thing, like a pound every 4 days. That's pretty good.
We'll see, man. We'll see. That Highland Park 17 year, that definitely sweetens the deal.
It does. Yeah. And so actually I'm on here right now on Amazon. I'm trying to send you guys some ho-hos and Swiss rolls.
Well, hey, if Chris Thomas is listening to this, don't even try to get in on this contest, Chris. If you lost 2 pounds, dude, not pretty. Chris needs to gain weight, bro. Yeah. So don't even try, Chris.
If you're listening to this, Chris, I want you to swing through Burger King or something and get a Whopper combo meal. Go ahead and supersize that thing. Dude, if Chris is that guy who, Chris can eat, Burger King or McDonald's, he could eat it every day for a year and he'd gain a pound and he'd still, weigh under $140. It's crazy.
So do you guys want the baker's dozen of ho-hos or should I just go for the big 24?
You can deep fry those, right?
Can.
Deep fry Twinkies. Twinkies are best for deep frying. Good call. Good call.
No, no, man. You're not gonna get me, man. You're not gonna get me.
Speaking of deep frying, what's up with the Supreme Court?
Dude, the Supreme Court deep frying some leftist tears. So they've had a couple. The Supreme Court's been in the news quite a bit for the last, I don't know, what, month. They've had some of their rulings come out. They had the ruling, on businesses that you can't fire somebody if they're confused about which bathroom to use. They've had a couple of others. So, but the big one, it didn't get a whole lot of coverage, which is shocking, especially in an election year. Like I was absolutely boggled that this didn't get a whole lot of coverage. So it was about the Electoral College, right? So after the 2016 election, everybody knows it all the brouhaha about the Electoral College. How Hillary won the popular vote by like 3 million votes. But Trump won, obviously the Electoral College, and at the end of the day, the Electoral College dictates who is president, not the popular vote. A couple of things. One, so one thing that really it didn't surprise me. It was just sad is how many people, after the 2016 election, didn't understand that's how the Electoral College works, and that's how. That's how our government is, constructed, right? They're like, what is this Electoral College thing? I think AOC was like, I don't even know anybody who's, graduated from there. And so it was, and so the Electoral College, they came out and said, basically some electors in Washington and Colorado before the election in 2016, they had proposed that they said, we are giving our electoral votes to Hillary Clinton. Right, even before the Americans went to the polls, which, I mean, when you think about it, that's really insane, right? The electors don't get to decide who they're going to give their votes to, and so a case went up before the Supreme Court. The lawyer Lawrence Lessig for the electors came out and said afterwards, we took this case initially because we needed to be resolved before we had a constitutional crisis. And so it's almost like they did this, they did this intentionally, actually to get SCOTUS to weigh in. And so the vote was 9-0. Very few times have we seen a 9-0 vote come out of the Supreme Court. Everybody, obviously it was unanimous. Kagan wrote the decision. Clarence Thomas also wrote a decision. I think Brett Kavanaugh wrote a separate decision as well. I think because they all had a couple different reasons for their decisions. Kagan was like, nope, this is in accordance with the Constitution. As well, the nation. Here, the people rule. Clarence Thomas came out and said, Kagan also noted, she specifically mentioned the 12th Amendment, facilitating the Electoral College, quote, as a mechanism not for deliberation, but for party line voting. And then Clarence Thomas wrote his decision, and he quoted the 10th Amendment, the power to the states. And the case was, can states punish electors who do not provide their submit their electoral votes, that they do not vote in line with the popular vote of the state, right? So Florida, the majority of Florida votes for Trump, then the state electors have to give their electoral votes to Trump, right? They can't decide, well, no, I'm going to give them to Colin Powell, or I'm going to give them to John Kasich, like happened in 2016 with a couple of states, right? Which is insane when you think about it. And so a lot of people lost their shit on it. A lot of people, the folks who want to disband the Electoral College, they want to dissolve it. When that right after the 2016 election, when that National Popular Vote Interstate Pact came out, and people got to, some of the states got together. I think Nevada was one, maybe Colorado, and a couple other idiots got together, and they talked about how, we're going to give our electoral votes to whoever wins the national popular vote. So that was not part of the Supreme Court decision. because that hasn't made it out of those states yet. Some of the states haven't passed that law or anything, but what they did was, lends credit back toward it supports the Electoral College. The Electoral College is not going to be dissolved as much as people want it to be, because at the end of the day, it would take a constitutional amendment, right? So that's 2/3 of Congress has a vote on it, and then 2/3 of the states have to, yay it to ratify it. So the Electoral College is not going anywhere. It was a good win, for the Constitution. And at the end of the day, like for SCOTUS to come out on a 9-0 ruling, that right there should tell you all you need to know. And even today, SCOTUS came out with another ruling saying that employers do not have to provide contraception to employees through their insurance plans if their religious beliefs, if it conflicts with their religious beliefs, right? So big wins for companies like Hobby Lobby and others. So that's what's going on in the SCOTUS. John Roberts hit his head a couple weeks ago. They said he had to go to the hospital and get checked out. Maybe that, I don't know. Maybe that makes up for, maybe that tells the tale on some of his decisions lately, where he's been a little off. I don't know if that bump on the head still lingering or what, but that's what's going on in SCOTUS news. Oh, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg is still alive, apparently.
That might be a weekend at Bernie's. I might have to see some actual breathing and some movement. Just saying. And I tell you, with the Electoral College, and this is a pretty big deal. And I started doing, I kind of knew a lot about it anyway, as we tend to follow this kind of politics and history. But I went through and started reading a little bit more about it. Just off the bat on the left-hand side, and I'll kind of get into the background of the Electoral College here in a second, but there was a question that was asked, and I don't believe they actually asked. I think they just, or the ones that took the data, as far as support eliminating, they asked, do you support eliminating the Electoral College in favor of the popular vote? And this was a Democratic field at the time when you had all of, 22, 23 members. And I'll keep the list fairly short. The only ones who said no, it was Biden, Bloomberg, Bullock, Delaney, Hickenlooper, and Sestak. The no but reform it was Gabbard and Yang. And then everybody else was yes or open to it. There were only 3 open to it: Harris, Klobuchar, Ryan, and everybody else was a yes. So your Bookers, your Bennett's, your Buttigieg's, Castro's, what have you. So there's been a big push for several years based on the election with, all the way back to Bush, as far as having the popular vote nationally determine who the president is. And kind of give the listeners out there, some of you probably know a lot of this. For those that don't, kind of give you a quick history lesson before I throw it over to Luke. But basically, with the Electoral College, every state gets as many electors as it has members of Congress. So basically, you get 435 members of the House of Representatives, 100 members of the Senate, and then the District of Columbia has 3 as well. So there's a total of 538. You need just over majority to win, so 270 electoral votes to actually win. Now, what they do is the political parties, and this actually, as I was researching this, it brought up a bigger question in my head that I'll get to in a second. I'll throw to you, Luke. But you basically need 270 to win, and what happens is in each state, each political party has their slate of electors that are going to go vote. So if the popular, in theory, let's use Arizona, if the majority of Arizonans vote for the Republican candidate, then the Republican slate of electors go forward to cast their vote. If we vote and the popular opinion goes towards, or the popular vote goes to the Democrat, then that slate goes forward to cast a vote. So that goes back to the Republic, right? There's not a direct elector of the President of the United States, Vice President of the United States. You're electing the slate of electors to go forward and cast that vote for you. So that's where really the Supreme Court decision comes down to say, well, okay, we've picked these 10 folks for, as an example, just a random number out there. We picked these 10 folks as the Republican slate to vote for the Republican candidate based on the will of the people and their popular vote. So if the popular vote says Republican, can those folks go up there and vote against? And I didn't read the whole ruling. I did hear that they can be punished. I'm not sure how you punish them other than remove them and just replace them with somebody. What I believe, I think I saw, I read, or if that makes sense, what I think is that it's more up to the states on how they want to mandate it. So the states can basically say, you need to follow suit with the popular vote, or you have the option to choose who you want or what have you. So, and this is very important when it comes down to the difference between a republic and a democracy. And it goes on a bigger topic, but on the presidential level and the vice presidential level, we are a true republic, right? We are electing a slate of electors to go vote for the president, for the vice president. It's been the Democratic agenda to abolish it because they've had the popular vote a couple of times where if you'd have strictly gone off that, the presidency would have changed. So this kind of comes down to, and I'll throw this at Luke. This is a little bit off the Electoral College, but each state has their state party representatives, political party representatives, declare electors or the electorate. Like, where does that stem from? Where does that right stem from? Why only two parties? I mean, does that make sense? I mean, in the Constitution, it talks about electorate. It talks about electors. It doesn't mention anything about Democrats, Republicans, or the Federalists or anything like that. So it kind of, and I didn't go through and gurgle and do my due diligence on it, but just kind of makes you wonder. It's like, well, who set the rules for this? Why only two parties? Why only two slates of electorates? What happens if a third party comes in and actually does well? Is there a third party electorate? So it just kind of, as I started reading into it, and I'm a fan of Electoral College because I can get into, after you talk, I'll get into why it was created. But it just kind of makes me wonder. It's like, well, wow, the political parties are creating their own rules outside of the Constitution. I'm not even sure what right or authorities they have. I guess maybe there's some state laws, but I'm not even sure state laws or state constitutions address political parties. So what do you think?
I think that's a good point. It's something I haven't really thought about that much, and I obviously haven't done a whole lot of research, but I do know, like you said, all the states have different rules, but they all have to conform with the Constitution, right? Electoral College came around in 1787, and I'm doing a pretty good job since then with it. But yeah, I think part of the reason there's set dates to get a certain amount of signatures and all these things to actually run for president is so that, some of these processes with the electorates within each state to be registered and nominated and all that stuff. So I do know it has something to do with the dates. You can't just come in at the last second, Kanye West, and say, I'm running for president. It just kind of doesn't work that way. I mean, he can try and people can write him in, but at that point, it's a good point, Roger. It's like, okay, so let's just say that Kanye West gets 75% of the vote nationwide in every state, right? Well, who are his electors? Because folks, when you're going to vote, technically you're voting for the elector, right? Who's part of the Electoral College. That's who you're actually voting for, because that's the person who's going to really vote. So it's kind of a weird system, but I'll tell you, the founding fathers were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. I hear a lot of talk now about, Civil War and all this stuff. And there's a deep divide and things like that. I think that the founding fathers, the framers, kind of saw, they didn't see the internet and things like that, obviously, but they looked at, did a lot of study in philosophy, a lot of, spiritual type study, basic rights and things like that, God-given or however you want to view them. And they realized we could come to a situation where we are today, where I'm sure you all know this, but if we did away with the Electoral College and it was just a straight up popular vote, democracy for the president, what happens at that point? Within 2 election cycles, the entire campaign focuses on New York City, Los Angeles, Detroit, Houston, go down the list. It's going to focus on population centers. And those are the people that are going to be represented, or at least they're going to be promised they're going to be represented by the president. The office of the president obviously is different than the Senate and the House. The Senate represents the state. Obviously, the House represents a certain district in the state. So yeah, that is pretty much a popular vote within the state and the district. So, anyone, in my opinion, it boggles my mind when a politician who's semi-educated says they want to do away with the Electoral College, and not just do away with it, reform it. I understand. I guess I'd have to see what they have to say about it. But as far as doing away with it and going to a popular vote, I am telling you, anyone who votes yes to that, one of two things: either they don't understand and they're stupid, and they don't care if LA and New York are the only 2 areas in the states that have any say, or they want the country to fail. They want it to fail. So they're either stupid or they want it to fail. That's all there is to it. And if somebody, please, if I'm off base on that, please explain to me why I'm off base. The Electoral College is actually a pretty smart thing. It represents everyone equally, as the president should. Now, that's a whole other podcast. What should a president do? You know, how should a president act? But in my humble opinion, the president should represent everyone, even the people who disagree with him or her, and try to convince that person, talk to them, talk to the opposition more than you talk to the people who support you and say, hey, this is how we feel. We hope you feel it. I want you to feel the same way. This is what's best for our country. I don't think we've had that in quite some time. But those are kind of my thoughts on the Electoral College. I'm glad that this Supreme Court decision went through. I'll kick it to Josh for last minute thoughts. Hopefully he fixed his internet.
Sorry, it's dude. It's bad weather here in North Kakalaki right now. I can't help it. My bad. I'll try and be better next time. Yeah, no, you're spot on. Right, people who want to abolish the Electoral College, they are either uneducated and they don't know what they're saying, or two, they are, the members of the squad in the House of Representatives right now who literally hate the country. They want to see it fail. They want to burn down, our founding documents, and everything that makes us Americans, and start over. Because quote unquote, the masses should be able to dictate. LA County should be able to dictate who's president for the rest of the country, which is absolutely insane when you think about it. Everybody's all going nuts right now because of all the protesters and stuff like that. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you want the people who are shitting in the streets of San Francisco to dictate the laws that impact people in Kansas, then go ahead and get rid of the Electoral College, because that's what you're going to wind up with. the degenerates who live in LA, and the people shitting on sidewalks in San Francisco, and the idiots in New York running around shooting fireworks at people. If you want them to decide who's going to be dictate law and policy and everything for people in the Midwest, then go ahead and get rid of the Electoral College. But it just, and that kind of takes us into into the other realm. Those out there right now who are calling for a fundamental change to America, to the United States. I think I distinctly remember a candidate in 2008 saying that we were going to fundamentally change America, and I think I just saw another ad or commercial come out for a current candidate who said that we will we want to make fundamental changes in America, which I don't know about you guys, but the last time they said that, it did not turn out well. It put us on the path we're on now.
And for those the listeners out there for the Electoral College, and one of the things I've been thinking about as I had to go back and do some more research on it was, why do we even have it? And Luke hit it on the head at the very beginning. With our founding fathers were pretty smart. They kind of, again, they didn't foresee the internet and all this other stuff, but there were a lot of things they did have some insight on. And so basically during the convention in Philadelphia, you had one party that didn't want the congressional body to have a say in who the president was or the vice president, right? We got rid of a king, a tyrant, all that other good stuff. And so you had one party that didn't want to have that congressional body have that decision. And then you had the other party that didn't necessarily want the Democratic mob, which is what's going on today, right? They didn't want the Democratic mob and people to have a say, and they felt, and these are my words, that people were too stupid to vote. In their words, it was people are too ill-informed. So it comes down to, hey, they knew that, guess what? You had some smart MFers back then, right? You had your Thomas Jeffersons and your Adams and your George Washingtons, but they knew that, hey, that necessarily isn't an equal representation of the entire country. And they knew that the majority of folks, and it was a little different reason back then. Obviously, you didn't have the connectivity and the communications that you have now. Nowadays, it's just fucking pitiful because you have no excuse. Back then, you lived out and you were a farmer. Comms just didn't happen. You didn't happen until you ran into somebody that was coming in to trade, or the what was it, the carpetbaggers and the scallywags that Luke and Josh were talking about earlier. They came through your town and, hey, we've got some news for you. So there was a little bit of an excuse for it back then versus nowadays where everybody's connected and you have if you're ill-informed, it's your own fault. But the political parties back then knew that, hey, this was going to be an issue. So that was one way to prevent mob rule. And I think that's what it really came down to, was preventing the mob rule. And people were just too dumb or too ill-informed to vote directly for the leader of our country. And, speaking of the mob rule, it kind of brings me down to it, and it's a little bit off topic, but term limits. At first, and I tell you, I have flip-flopped on this hardcore, because I used to be for term limits big time. Before President Trump took over, before AOC, before the squad, I was like, hey, man, 35 years in Congress, 40 years in government, 45 years. Biden's up to like 50 years, total 47 years. It's just way too long. When the squad came in, again, goes back to our forefathers, they kind of figured things out, that especially with the term Democratic mob, which I pulled from, I think it was the History Channel. It was a term that was actually used. Term limits, you have a real chance of a Democratic mob coming in and sweeping the country and taking over if you have term limits. And so as much as you may not like the Mitch McConnells of the world and this and that, but what he does do, and even Pelosi to an extent, right? What they do is kind of keep things a little bit on the level, even keel. It prevents it from going too far one way or too far the other. Because believe it or not, as much as I think they're all shitbags for the most of them, you have to have your Schumers with your Mitch McConnells. Believe it or not, you want those guys in office, because they're going to prevent this whole wave of this Democratic mob coming in and just totally changing things. Because here's what would happen when you look back at the Obama years. And even when you look at the first couple of years of President Trump's presidency, you got to remember, one party controlled everything, all branches of government, right? So what kind of damage can you do when one party controls all branches of government, especially if they're swept in by the quote unquote Democratic mob? I'll kick that back to Luke for some of his thoughts on it. One other thing that I thought was pretty interesting. So one of the things that I've watched lately is Shark Tank. Big fan of Shark Tank. And with all the COVID stuff, there aren't really a whole lot of new shows coming in. But it was kind of funny because the episodes I'm watching now are reruns from 2010, 2011, this and that. And all these folks come up here and they're pitching their business ideas and what have you. And I tell you, every shark up there, they're all like, man, do you know how bad this economy is? Like, there's no way this is going to work in this economy. Nobody's going to spend $40 on your product with how shitty this economy is. And this economy, it looks like this economy is going to be this way for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Just one quick guess who was the president during that economy. Because remember, 1% is the new normal. So with that thought, I'll throw it back to Luke for some of his final words on the Electoral College.
Well, final words. You brought up a really good point, Roger. That's a bug that's going to stick in my head, and I'm gonna go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole on the two-party thing and how that applies to the Electoral College. That's thanks a lot, man. Now I know what I'm doing for an hour tomorrow is researching that. Yeah, speaking of which, on a sidebar real quick, you do know the company Segway is going out of business, right? That said,
I didn't hear that.
That said, it is. That said, I'll kind of do my own little spin on this Electoral College to our next topic. I imagine back in the day, and I wish I was a historian, had enough time to like really dig into the records and research, some of the disinformation campaigns that went on back in the day, back in like 1886 or 1876, the country's is fractured now. People want to say it's fractured. We're going toward a civil war. But look back at how close some of the elections were. I mean, Rutherford B. Hayes, he won. They had to go to the House with that, and the House had to do something funky. I heard about that today, and I was like, wow, it was that close. So it's like, it's kind of always been like this. I do think we're in dangerous times with an ill-informed, uninformed voters, the mob that's going on. We recently had the whole thing with the Trump rally in Tulsa, where I believe AOC came on and said, oh, it was the TikTok folks who got on and, made a meme about going and making a reservation. And they thought they had 1 million reservations and whatnot. So that's my smooth segue to talk about TikTok at this point in social media. So I started social media with MySpace, as Josh and Roger probably did. And MySpace, actually, think back to MySpace, folks who are old enough to remember it. It was actually kick ass. Man, there was no like algorithm or anything, but there was no algorithm hooking you up to people. You could post music videos, you could post your own content on there. There was no moderation, not really. And, people with like interests just naturally gravitated toward each other because, in my opinion, they had to put forth more effort. Then came Facebook and the algorithms and everything. And I'm pretty much now a Facebook guy. Twitter is my second choice. Well, actually, YouTube's probably my second choice, then Twitter. I freaking hate Instagram. I hate it. I never got in on the Snapchat. I know that the kids did. My kids did. But now the latest thing is this TikTok. And it's like, hey, what's this TikTok thing? I saw it advertised for the first time on Facebook, actually. And it's, for those of you who aren't familiar, there's about, I think, 34 million users in the States. I thought it was more than that, but it's only about 34 million users. And I would guess that the majority of those users are under 26. When I first found out about TikTok, it's a Chinese app, period. It's a Chinese platform. And when I saw Chinese platform, I was like, no, it's just not going to happen. It will never be on my phone. And Josh, he's on his phone right now playing with TikTok. But, certain countries like China and Russia, I didn't have time today to dig in on the national laws in China, but I know that Russia has certain laws on the books. It's almost like our Patriot Act, but it's Patriot Act on steroids and crack, to where everything that's on the internet is subject to the Russian government. If it goes through, and not only that, if any part of the internet goes through a Russian node or a Russian server, it belongs to the Russian government. I can't remember the name of the laws, SORM laws or something like that. And I'm sure that China has the same thing. In a totalitarian regime, communist regime like that, I guarantee you there is no such thing as a private company over there. Now, TikTok keeps saying, oh, we're a private company. We don't have anything to do with the Chinese government. But, guess what, dude? The game is just about up. And this kind of does tie back into the Electoral College and elections and things like that. And I'm hoping we can discuss that. But this week, the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice announced they're investigating whether TikTok failed to comply with the 2019 agreement designed to protect children's privacy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the investigation. Bill Barr came out, and I think it was some Fox program. I can't remember who the host was, but he came out and said, I don't know what announcement we're going to make, but I don't want to steal any of the president's thunder about TikTok. That tells me they are seriously thinking about banning it. Now, the majority of actual TikTok users were in India until about last week. Then India banned the app, banned the use of that platform. So they just lost a ton of users in India. So, US might be next on the block for that. That's 34 million users right there. And this TikTok, I try to explain to my kids, and this is why I want to kind of get Josh's view on it and maybe yours, Roger. They just don't seem to care. No matter, how many times I tell them, hey, this is kind of what I do for a living, and this is not safe. Okay. Do you really want the Chinese government to have all this information on you? If anyone thinks for a second, like they're TikTok users, if there's any younger users out there, they're TikTokers and they think they have, 400 or 10,000 followers, I've got news for you. You probably only have about 20. The rest of those are all bots. Because I'm serious. The way they are, man. Reddit actually used this strategy when they first started out until they got called out on it, where these social media platforms have a lot in common with gambling. You guys know the deal, man. You look at your notifications. I posted something. You look at your notifications, you get a tiny little bit of hit of dopamine in your system when you get a notification. This has been studied. It has a lot in common with gambling. So you get a hit of dopamine every time you do it. And teenagers are especially susceptible to this type of reward-based behavior. So what these companies figured out, and it started with Reddit, was, well, if we make them think they have more followers than they actually have, they'll be more apt to actually use it. So this TikTok, I don't have any proof of it, but I guarantee you they're doing the same thing Reddit did because they have no rules. So it's a tough thing because, if there's a similar TikTok campaign or social media campaign targeting, 18 to 25 right before the presidential election, I mean, could that tip the election? And another piece of that is, will 18 to 25s be so pissed off that the Trump administration took away their TikTok? One kid actually committed suicide, they're saying, because they took away TikTok. Yeah, I think that was in India. I mean, could that sway the election? I'm serious. You guys are laughing. That actually happened. I mean, could that sway the election? Could people get pissed off enough about it? What do you think, Josh?
I think banning TikTok is bullshit. Right? So, and here's where I go with that, right? So the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act came out, and it came out obviously on the heels of 9/11. Everybody was scared. Everybody was, mom flag, the apple pie, whole nine yards. And people, a lot of folks were all about, yeah, well, we're gonna catch some terrorists. We're gonna keep the country safe. We're not gonna allow 3,000 Americans to be murdered again. Whole nine yards, right? And a lot of libertarians were like, hold up. The Patriot Act is, not all well and good. But of course, the U.S. government said, of course, there's so many, checks and balances put in place. There's so much oversight. This will never be abused. We will never abuse this capability, right? All the capabilities that are housed inside the Patriot Act, we'll never abuse this. FISA courts, we'll never abuse, FISA courts. I mean, who could have imagined that? Well, wow, look, the FISA process got abused, to spy on political opponents and private citizens, right? Is TikTok bad? Am I going to put it on my phone? Absolutely not, right? Am I going to educate my kids on TikTok? Absolutely. But do we really want to be in a position to where we are comfortable and we are good with the U.S. government dictating what apps we can and can't put on our phones? What's safe and what's not? What is safe? The government can't even protect its own damn employees' information, right? The Chinese stole all of our shit from OPM, right? So what is safe? What is the government gonna? What app is gonna be next? And people talk about it. People are like, "Oh, that's slippery slope argument. That doesn't happen, right? That's a logical fallacy." Okay, well, it started off with the Robert E. Lee statue, and now people are literally tearing Frederick Douglass statues out of the ground, right? And looking at you, Kristen, where you at? I hope you're listening, because you didn't come back on that. You were like, no, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. We just need to change the barracks at West Point, right? Did the barracks get changed yet, Kristen? Nope, sure didn't. And guess what? Now Lincoln statues have come down. Washington, even Frederick Douglass. Like, what the hell is wrong with people? But yeah, everybody's on board with them banning TikTok because it's bad. It presents a cybersecurity risk. Yeah. Well, John Q. Public, guess what? That badass refrigerator you just bought from Lowe's or Home Depot, that's all wireless up. That's bad too. Your thermostat, your wireless thermostat, that's bad. Your irrigation system that you have put in your yard that you control from a control panel in your garage, your wireless, guess what? That's bad too. So basically anything in your home that has power, it emits a signal, that's bad. So get rid of it. If we're okay with letting the USG start, dictating what apps we can and can't put on our phone, then badass, let's do it. 1984 was a warning. It's not a fucking how-to guide. Oh, that's what I got to say about TikTok.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so here we go. I'm cutting in. Roger's gonna go next, but I guarantee this is gonna go around again because Roger's gonna say something, then I am, and then I'm gonna kick it back to Josh, Lincoln Douglas style.
First of all, I don't think Kristen listens to this podcast. I think we only have like 3 of them out there anyway, so I don't think we have any fears of that. But let me read you a little snippet here before I crush your soul, and then Luke stomps on it. Any organization or citizen shall support, assist, and cooperate with the state intelligence work in accordance with the law and keep the secrets of national intelligence work known to the public. State intelligence work organizations shall carry out intelligence work according to law, may require relevant organs, organizations, and citizens to provide necessary support, assistance, cooperation, and it goes on and on and on. Article 16, Article 17, Article 18. You know what that is? That is the National Intelligence Law of the People's Republic of China, 2017. So what that means is they have passed a law in China saying that every commercial organization, if a Chinese intelligence agency comes to you and asks for assistance or wants your records, which we're seeing, which is what's happening now, which is what happened, I think, in Hong Kong, and what brought up a lot of this stuff, that you have to support, which means that you're pulling your stuff. Now, when you look, and I agree with Josh, right? There's a lot of things out there that provide a threat. With something like this, where, okay, you are forced as a commercial entity to give the Chinese government access to the data in there, because what's happening is when you look at the overarching vulnerabilities, they can, and there's like 5 of them, they can get a hold of TikTok accounts and manipulate their content. So what they're seeing now is videos that are going to Luke, videos that are going to Josh or whatever, they're changing the content. All right. You've heard about deep fakes. You can gurgle that stuff or whatever. They're actually changing your content. So Luke has his TikTok channel. He's up there with his stupid cats and his lazy ass dog and whatever else. But they're changing that to change the content, change the message. And Josh is seeing that message. Delete videos, upload unauthorized videos, make private hidden videos public, reveal personal information saved on the account, such as private email addresses. So they have total access. And then there's other reports where now they're able to turn on your camera. Now they're able to turn on their microphone. And the thing is, they can argue, TikTok can say, hey, look, we don't condone that. You know, we don't do that as a company. Oh, you don't do it as a company until the Chinese government says, okay, come in and let me see Luke Jones's phone. Go ahead and turn that microphone on. When you have a state law that allows for that, I think you do have to ban that. And I think that does fall within our national security, because kind of going back to Luke, as we're sitting here chatting back and forth. So I guess you're good with Huawei, huh? So we're good with Huawei products and all that stuff, or where do we stand on that? So I do think, generally speaking, I don't want the government to get involved in what we download and what we don't download and all other stuff. But when you have something that is as egregious as this, where you have state-sponsored manipulation of the app or software or anything. So, I mean, I guess you're good with all the software out there too that we've been banning, right? I mean, the Kaspersky and all that stuff, the FBI said, hey, get that shit off. I guess you're fine with all that stuff. No, you don't want that stuff on any of your systems. I mean, there are certain things that you do have to protect, the people from. So I'll leave you with this before I throw it back to Luke. When TikTok first started, they had 2,000 censors employed. Personnel that acted as censors to look at content and this and that. And they were removing and editing political content. And this was what was happening in India and happening in specifically Hong Kong and mainland China. So they were editing that content, censoring that content, or straight out removing that content. They have since then increased from 2,000 up to 10,000. So I'm sure, and of course, what's his name? Zhang Yiming, whatever, how the fuck you pronounce that name. I'm sure, he said, hey, well, you know what? We removed all the politics out of this because, we're all happy. It's that globalist spirit that fucking Josh is portraying right now. But we're all happy, hold hands and this and that. We're going to remove politics. Yeah, because it had nothing to do with, changing the message out there, right? So that's my piece on TikTok. If you have it, get rid of the shit. With something like that, where the government, another foreign government, has said, yeah, we're going to hack this and provide a backdoor into your system, which is what they've done, right? They've done that. For the U.S. government not to step in that, you're dumb.
Josh's head is about to explode, folks.
He's just mad because he's got his own TikTok account. Because remember what episode, like episode 4 or 5, that we plugged his daughter's TikTok account, which, by the way, that's not his daughter's, that's his TikTok account. And he got butthurt when Luke said that you don't have 1,000 followers, you actually only have 2. So that there went his self-esteem.
Well, there's actually 2, that same company has 2 apps, basically, 2 programs, 2 social media platforms. They're the same thing. One is more heavily monitored than the other. And I cannot remember the name of the other one. It's TikTok. And then there's another one. Well, no, it's not that one. It's the exact same.
Musically, they just bought.
Yeah, but this other one is TikTok for mainland China.
Oh yeah, because
mainland China, you cannot have TikTok.
Yeah, they're called the Facebook of China because they actually
Yeah.
have, I think it's 3 or 4 different big time social
Right.
media outlets or what have you.
And just for everyone's information, TikTok was also banned recently in Hong Kong. They turned TikTok off and told everyone in Hong Kong you have to have the other version, the mainland Chinese version. So I hear what Josh is saying. I have a couple issues with it. Number one, it's a foreign company. Or two, I think it's a national security issue along the lines of Huawei. I do think, though, I'll give you this, Josh. I think there needs to be more of a discussion than just an executive order saying it's banned. Okay. It's time for the government to tell everyone the truth, and not sugarcoat it and not dumb it down. The canteeners listening to this, we can understand it. Tell us what's really going on. Tell us the threat, and we'll either go along with it or we won't. But we need to know exactly what it is. Because honestly, I don't have enough information on TikTok other than I know it's a Chinese company. I know they're obligated to give their data to the Chinese government. So, yeah, I don't have a problem, mainly because it's a foreign entity being banned. Second, it's national security, like I said. And, at some point, you got to put your foot down. That's my take. I know Josh's philosophy a little bit, maybe I'm wrong, is, hey, we get what we deserve. If every stupid motherfucker wants to put TikTok on their phone and get spied on, well, then we get what we deserve. And we'll be speaking Chinese in the year 2028, and he's nodding his head. So, I mean, I disagree. I respectfully disagree with Josh. But I know he's got a good thought process behind it. I'll let you rebut us, Josh, to be fair.
Yeah, because I want to hear this good thought process.
Oh, come on.
So I know you guys have done it. When was the last time you took one of those silly ass quizzes on Facebook to figure out what flavor of ice cream you are?
Zero.
Or,
I am most like Robert Redford.
Exactly. Right. So when you want to talk about protecting your private information, your personal information, your PII, as we call it in the business, people are like, oh my God, TikTok, we got to get rid of it. But these are the same people that are out there taking all the Facebook quizzes, to figure out what type of rock they are. Right. And so at the end of the day, you say it's a national security threat. Okay, I guess you could go down that road. But if it's not on a government phone, it's not accessing government information. Is it a national security threat? I don't know. I think you could argue that both ways. But what Roger's going to be really disappointed when, he finds out that Beijing Kunlun Tech actually owns his favorite app on his phone that he's always posted on Facebook about. And that app name is called Grinder. So
too funny.
If we're gonna ban Chinese apps, then Roger is probably gonna be upset because Grinder is a Chinese app. So, for you folks out there listening that are, swiping left or swiping right on Grinder, whichever one it is, I don't know how that stuff works. Roger can, probably expound on it later if he wants to. Guess what? You go ahead and delete that shit off of your phone as well, because that's a Chinese app. Hey, if you got World of Warcraft, you're playing World of Warcraft out there, go ahead and delete that shit off your phone. Chinese app. So I mean, we can run through all the Chinese apps that are out there in the app stores, and are we going to ban all of them? Because if we're not going to ban all of them, why are we banning one? If we're going to do this, if we're just going to go ahead and, if the government's going to overstep and say, we're going to dictate what you can and can't have on your phones, then let's do this. Let's go full hog on it and do it. I think it's a bad idea. I think more discussion needs to be had. If you want to put a hiatus on it, that's okay. I got no issue with that. But we have to have the discussion, vice the USG just being allowed to unilaterally decide what I, as a private citizen, can put on my personal electronic device. I don't think that's where we want to go. We have seen our liberties erode over the last couple of decades, and I'm for one am not allowing any more of my liberties to erode. It's just I'm not going to allow it. It's not going to happen. I'm sick of it. You said we got to draw a line and put our foot down somewhere, Luke, and I agree. We have to fucking put our foot down somewhere, and I'm putting my foot down on this one.
I guess he's an MSS fan. I guess he's a Ministry of State Security. I mean, put your foot down right there.
He just knows that he's being listened to right now.
Hey, we do have one listener in Taiwan. We haven't identified him yet. Maybe he's an MSS guy. I'm not going to download your shitty app, but I don't want it banned.
Well, and it does go to, and you bring up some valid points, because it is, if you look at one, you have to look at all. And that kind of goes back to Luke's comment. You do have to have a discussion about it. And there is a difference, because there's certain apps that obviously provide additional authorizations and additional permissions. Last time I checked, World of Warcraft wasn't looking to look at my contacts or, Mike, or maybe it does. I don't know. I don't fucking play it. But, I think you look at permissions and something that we do have to look real hard at with, we've already made the decision with Huawei, right? We've made the decision with Huawei that, hey, you can't bring that shit in here because the threat's high enough. So I do think, there is you can't parse it out. I agree with that. You can't just do one. Hey, if you're saying, China has access to every app out there and can turn on the microphones and turn on the cameras and all other good stuff, I think that you have to take a look at, maybe that is the answer, is that you do prevent all of those apps. But the discussion has to be had. And I think you have to educate the population. And that kind of goes back to joking around a little bit with Luke about being a globalist, and with Josh, that kids nowadays have grown up connected. It became a bad word to be, like a nationalist or nationalism. That became a bad word. That just, everybody, automatically went back to the 1940s, and everybody nowadays is play well with each other, play nice and this and that. And you grow up connected. And so they just don't see the true threats out there. And I think part of the government, what they're failing to do, and not just government, but private institutions as well, is they are failing to educate the population. And if there is a threat out there, then educate folks about it. If there is, let them know what's going on, let them know who's doing it. And then, at the end of the day, the government can make the decision whether they're going to allow those type of apps to come across the border or not. So with that, you guys got anything else to say on the TikTok piece?
Josh is wrong.
Whatever.
So we'll leave the TikTok piece at that. I think there'll be more to come. The final topic that we wanted to bring up today, kind of close it out, and this is probably more on me versus, I don't know how much Josh and Luke have looked into it, but over the course of the last several weeks, several months, you've had this whole Black Lives Matter movement, and we've had some conversations I have internally with my kids as far as what it means, what it stands for, and there's just a whole lot of information out there. Some of it true, some of it untrue, but here's the one thing. Have you guys noticed that it seems, and maybe it's just me where I'm at because I'm obviously in Arizona, but it seems like over the last several days of the news cycle, I mean, it's been pretty quiet as far as the whole Black Lives, Matter movement. Anybody know, any reason why?
I know you're looking for an answer, but I mean, Terry Crews and Don Lemon had an interesting discussion about it.
What was there? I didn't even see that discussion. What were they talking about?
Okay, I'll cut in right here. If you really want me to, this is Roger's time. All right, it's
nope,
Luke's
absolutely rock and roll.
It's Luke's Canteen Cup. So Terry Crews, I think he's on America's Got Talent or something like that now. He was in the Expendables movie. He's that giant black dude with all the muscles. The guy is just a beast. I think he played football. I think he played NFL football. But he's been pretty outspoken about Black Lives Matter. He made a tweet the other day, and this was the tweet. Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people good? No. Knowing this reality, I stand on my decision to unite with good people, no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Given the numbers of threats against this decision, I also decided to die on this hill. So Terry Crews is basically out there saying, Black Lives Matter is, there's nothing wrong with saying all lives matter. Black Lives Matter is not Black Lives Better. And he's trying to communicate with the movement saying, hey, get your shit together. This is, it's a bad motto and all this stuff. He got freaking crucified. He went on the Don Lemon show on thank God I've never seen that show. Don Lemon is the worst. But he and Don Lemon actually really got into it. Don Lemon was trying to call him out, and I would never call Terry Crews out. So props to Don Lemon for doing that. But basically, Don Lemon came out and said, hey, Terry Crews, get it straight. This is about police brutality, period. Because Terry Crews was bringing up all the deaths in Chicago and things like that. He was saying, hey, if Black Lives Matter, how come nobody's pissed off about Chicago? I mean, it is a bloodbath there. New York City, it's a bloodbath. So if Black Lives Matter, so Don Lemon came up and said, hey, listen, Terry, it's not about that. It's about police brutality. So Don Lemon actually said that, which is like, okay, well, all right, now we know where they stand. But I didn't know if you were talking about that, Roger. Sorry to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
No, you're good. And it's interesting because that's one part of the conversation where you can't even say all lives matter, because if you don't agree with the movement or whatever, that you're an automatic racist. I was kind of going towards the background of Black Lives Matter and really looking into the founders. And this goes back to, I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago with my daughter. She had a post on there and we were talking about it. And I'm like, hey, do you really know about the founders of Black Lives Matter? Because here's the difference. And this kind of goes to, it doesn't have to be the left. It doesn't have to be the right. This kind of goes to just any ideology out there. Is radicals hijack a just cause. What happens is you have a just cause, racial equality. I think we all can agree with that, right? We don't, there shouldn't be any racism. It exists. I get it. It's bad. We all want racial equality. The problem is a radical group hijacks that cause. They take it as their own. And then if you oppose that radical group, you now automatically oppose the cause. So if you oppose Black Lives Matter as the group, as the organization, you're now a racist because you're opposing the rights of Black folks. And it goes back to, I think Luke said it the 2 episodes ago, with they can just reply with 3 or 4 words. And it takes me an entire book to explain the whole background, my position, my stance, and why, to educate the folks on it. And you only have so many words, and you only have so many breaths to be able to explain that before you just get tired of it. I see it all the time in my social media feeds. I sit there and I see some statements and I'm like, and I'm really not trying to get into an argument with folks. I ask some of the questions and I want to get into a lot dialogue back and forth because 1, maybe I'll become educated, and 2, maybe I can help educate them. But then I just get tired because you're a racist. Luke, you said it. It's 3 words. You're a racist. And then I've got to spend the next 35 minutes and probably it takes 3 years off my life to explain why I'm not and why they're wrong and what my position is and yada, yada, yada. So going back to the original thing, I wanted to look at Black Lives Matter, and I had to talk to my kids about it. It's like, hey, do you know that 2 of the 3 founders are declared trained Marxists? This is my opinion. This is why you haven't seen them in the last several days, last week, 2 weeks on TV, because an interview came out, and I'll read this to you real quick. It says, the first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular, talking about the other co-founder, are trained organizers, she said, referring to BLM co-founder Alicia Garza. We are trained Marxists. These are in quotes. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories, and I think that we really tried to do is build a movement that could be utilized by many, many Black folk. And this is what an interview with Jared Ball of the Real News Network. And this was, I believe it was 2015. So this started coming out about 2 weeks ago. And then people are like, whoa. Because now, as I started doing some more research with this, Patrisse Cullors, the lady who did this interview, said that she's a trained Marxist. You know who she is the protege of? I'll go and answer, it's rhetorical. Eric Mann. So does he ring a bell to either of you guys? How about Bill Ayers? How about Weather Underground? Okay, so Eric Mann was an agitator of the Weather Underground, was actually one of the national leaders of the SDS, which is the Students for a Democratic Society, which ended up splintering into 3 groups and became, groups that started advocating the use of violence. So when they splintered into the 3 groups, this is the guy, Eric Mann, who made it up to a national level. And this is the ideology that he subscribed to as a transition from the SDS into these other groups. Violent direct action should be used to combat U.S. imperialism. That was her mentor. Okay, 2 of the 3 co-founders, and I won't speak bad about the third one. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but I didn't do the research. I'm not going to lump her into that group. But 2 of the 3 co-founders, trained Marxist, and Cullors was, learning from Eric Mann, who advocated that violent direct action should be used to combat U.S. imperialism. And when you look up Eric Mann, he has a whole history of it. And for those that don't know Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground, take a look at them. Just Google it real quick, because there's a lot of stuff there as far as, I mean, they're a declared domestic terrorist organization by the FBI. Okay, they went out and conducted mass bombings, right? I think it was banks, federal buildings. Sometimes they called ahead, sometimes they didn't. But they are a declared domestic terrorist organization. And the funny thing is, I'll kind of close out on this before I throw it to Josh and get some of his thoughts on it. But he makes a statement, and I don't know if this was actually quoted or what have you, but I thought it was pretty interesting with the initials here. So what he wanted to do was combine the white fighting force, which you're seeing now, because apparently everybody I know is now a racist. I see on Facebook and social media that they're all apologizing for being white. I'm like, I just don't. I mean, maybe I am surrounded by racists. I don't know. It's just everybody's apologizing for not being black. But they wanted to combine the white fighting force with the Black Liberation Movement, BLM. Kind of, pretty interesting to me. Now, could that be coincidental? I don't know. But when you look at the movement of what SDS did and Weather Underground did back in the 60s with the Vietnam War and the protesting, which again, it started out just like now. You have peaceful protests, which I fully support. You go from peaceful protests to now the advocating of violence, which we've done. And I think, at least my perception from what I've read and what I've seen, we've actually made that transition a lot faster than what they did back in the 60s and the 70s with SDS and the Weather Underground. So, the whole point of this, you can like the movement, again, racial equality. I think we all want it. But you've got that radical group. You just have to know, when you look at Patrisse Cullors and Alicia Garzas, they are Marxists. Okay, they are not fighting. Even when you read their statements and you go back and you look historically, there's not even a mention of like racial equality. I mean, I get the whole premise of Marxism and communism and, class warfare and getting rid of all that. But hey, every one of their statements, very little, as far as what I've been reading, what I'm able to find, there are very few paragraphs or ideas or thoughts talking about combating racism. Specifically mentions combating U.S. imperialism, combating U.S. capitalism. So those are the facts. So that's what I would tell you. It's like, hey, you can be supportive of a cause, you can be supportive of racial equality, but really looking at the folks that are leading this stuff, because are you truly a Marxist? Are you truly supporting Marxism? Are you truly supporting, leaders or students of Marxism? And I think, that's one of the things that once I talked to my kids about that, my daughter's like, wow, that's a little nuts. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of the problem, is that small radical group. Well, not small anymore. They're probably the most powerful political organization right this second, has hijacked a greater cause that has some good to it. And if you disagree with it, hey, you're a racist. So, Josh, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on it. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And the crazy thing is that they are telling us what they're going to do. They aren't trying to hide it. This isn't some, underground organization that's slowly establishing a traditional resistance movement, right? Like they are literally telling us, out in the open, we are trained Marxists. We are going to either reform the system or we are going to burn it down. Right. That was, one of the BLM leaders. I believe they were doing a Fox interview or something. And the guy told whoever it was, like, we're going to reform the system or we're going to burn it to the ground, literally or figuratively. They're not trying to hide what they're trying to do. And people are like, well, no, you can't say all lives matter because that's racist. And you're absolutely right. Nobody wants to be labeled as a racist. And so, nobody wants to step up and speak out against Black Lives Matter, which, again, the message, racial equality, absolutely. All three of us have been so many places. We have met so many different people that we know there are good and shitty people of every, creed, race, religion, right? I think that goes without saying. I like good people. I don't like shitty people, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of what religion they are, or regardless of whatever. They don't know which bathroom to use, whatever, right? So when you sit down and you look at it at its core, it is absolutely a revolutionary movement that is hell bent on destroying the framework of our country. That's all it is, and they will absolutely stop at nothing. I guarantee you, not one of the members of BLM, not one of the founding members, right? Not one can tell me who Ceceria Turner is. I bet they don't know. I bet they couldn't say. They would be like, I don't know who that is. That was an 8-year-old girl who was killed in Atlanta this past weekend, right? You know how many protests they had for her? Guess who didn't show up on his private plane? Al Sharpton. He wasn't there. He didn't get his ass on his private jet and fly across the U.S. to stand up and grandstand. Even the Atlanta mayor came out, as dumb as she is, came out and was like, what are y'all doing? No, police weren't involved in this. You guys killed an 8-year-old kid. And I don't care, what color skin her was. That was an 8-year-old kid. And not one person from Black Lives Matter showed up. And then you have that ass clown Don Lemon tell Terry Crews, well, Black Lives Matter is about police brutality. It's not, it's not about black people shooting black people, right? So it's not all Black Lives Matter, just some, just those that are killed by police. And oh, by the way, we'll post a study up on the page or whatever, but in this study, man, guess what? The majority of black people killed by police aren't shot by white police officers. The majority of police brutality is not committed against black people. Right. And people will be like, well, white people are 70% of the population and black people are only 13% of the population. Right. They'll be like, but proportionately, black people commit more crimes. I'm sorry, but the 2016 FBI data backs that shit up. So that's not racist. That's fact. Facts don't care about your feelings. Right. People go along and, another thing that Black Lives Matter said, they keep talking about, systemic and institutional racism. Systemic, rather, let me get my shit together here, and institutional racism are a myth. If you don't agree with me, you hear this and you don't agree with me, feel free to come on over to the Culper's Canteen Cup Facebook page and post up what institution and specific, right? Be specific. What institution and what law or policy is racist? And we will have that discussion. Right, we will have a discussion that a lot of our elected officials, people who we, elected, some, won't have. We'll have that civil discussion because this stuff like this has to happen at the grassroots level. Our elected officials in D.C. have already proven that they're incapable of having a civil conversation or having a conversation at all. They won't even talk to each other anymore. Right, that's where we're at. So post up. Be specific. What institution, what policy, what law is racist? And I want you to, like Roger said, I want you to tell us that you support a Marxist organization. I want you to put it out there. Put your mouth as you support Black Lives Matter. You support a Marxist organization. So go ahead and post up there that you support Black Lives Matter and their Marxist ideology. Because if you want to, you want to be heard, you want all the voices to be heard, to make your voice heard. Don't be scared. Make your voice heard. Don't pull a Drew Brees on us. Don't say some shit and then the next day be like, oh, my bad. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Don't do that. Don't do that to us. So I got some more opinions on Black Lives Matter, but I'll close out with this one. It's all bullshit. The organization's bullshit. They don't care about all black people. They only care about black people who are killed by white people. That's it. They don't care about black people who are killed by black people. They're not in Chicago protesting. They're not in Chicago standing on the street corners, armed, making sure that people up there aren't shooting each other. They're not in Atlanta. They didn't go to the memorial service of Ceceria Turner. So get out of me. Get out of here with that bullshit that Black Lives Matter. They don't believe that shit. So that's my opinion on that, and I'll be quiet now.
Tell us what you really think. No, it's all a distraction, dude. It's a socioeconomic distraction based around skin color. That's all it is. It all started with George Floyd. We all know that. And, it was Jack Posobiec and Tim Pool making tweets and listening to podcasts and stuff that really made me start digging into Black Lives Matter. Because I think it was Tim Pool, actually the same day I read from Jack Posobiec, saying, hey, they're a racist, they're a Marxist organization. So I went to their page and I read, the Black Lives Matter page. I encourage you to go there because it's very interesting, blacklivesmatter.com. And I read through their about section, what we believe. And I mean, it was some intersectionalist Marxist shit. I mean, this thing is long. You got to scroll down 6 or 8 times to read about what they believe. And 2 weeks ago, when I first read it, I mean, it was like, we want to disintegrate the traditional family. And it was crazy. And I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my God. And then so Roger said what he said, a few minutes ago. He's like, have you heard anything about him lately? I was like, that's a good point. I haven't really. And I went back to their page, blacklivesmatter.com, what we believe. They have taken some of that stuff out. Some of that stuff that was there 2 weeks ago is not there anymore. They still have the intersectionalist, we foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather, the belief that all in the world are heterosexual. I mean, come on. What does that have to do with police brutality or anything like that? It has nothing to, that's intersectionalist Marxist bullshit is what that is. Now, I get frustrated just like Josh does. It's like, if we want to talk about reforming the police, at the state, local level, fine, man. I am all about hearing you out. I think Roger, 3 episodes, called out some of the laws that are being proposed, in some of the motions. And it's like, yeah, some of it makes a lot of sense. These people don't want to hear that. Like Roger said, they don't want to hear that. They want to, AOC came out and said, defund the police. They were saying, okay, we're going to cut $1 billion from the NYPD. And she made a tweet shortly after she won her primary. She made a tweet saying, defund the police means defund the police. So I start going down the rabbit hole of, well, what does that really mean? Defund the police. Go down the rabbit hole, folks. I encourage you to do so. We've talked about this before. What happens when you defund the police and there is no police? There's no police. There's no one to respond to your calls. It's all just social workers. Think about it. What do you do at that point? And I'll return to the Electoral College thing on this. Anyone who says that is either stupid or they do not have our country's best interests at heart. They don't. Oh, and by the way, just so everyone knows, do a little research on the beloved Karl Marx. Like, dig into the theory. It's not that long. His Communist Manifesto is not that long. His writings are fairly easy to understand because he wrote for the proletariat, the working man. So he wrote in a simple fashion. Marx was racist as fuck. That guy was a freaking racist. So it cracks me up. That just further affirms to me, this to them, these trained Marxists, it's not about race. It's about fundamentally transforming the economic and governmental system into a Marxist communist state, period. And they do not know what they're asking for. They don't know what they're asking for. And I could really, really go off. I could go off for 30 minutes on this. These people that are out there protesting, rioting and protesting for the wrong reasons and tearing down statues and everything, they're doing so. One of the reasons they're doing so is they're not thinking it through. They're being used as pawns. But even if they're not, like these trained Marxists, Bill Ayers, I'll go down the road with him. The only reason they did that shit is because they thought they were going to be as comfortable as they are in the new system where they had control. And they wouldn't be. They had full bellies every night. They had soft beds, all these things. We're spoiled rotten as Americans, and we have time to navel gaze and think about all these things. I just encourage everyone, as I close out, man, just count your blessings. Realize how lucky you are. Travel. Go to places. Don't go to Cabo. Go to Mali. Go to Chad. Go to Niger. Go to Mongolia. See how the Afghanistan. Don't go to Afghanistan. But see how these people live. I mean, they don't have time to think about Marxist radical ideology. I mean, we're weak people, and we're asking for a system. Well, not we, but a lot of people are asking for a system that is going to be oppressive and just absolutely brutal. So I encourage everyone to go out and vote. Go out and vote. this election is going to be very, very important, I believe. And we'll cover that on a later episode. I want to kick it around the horn to Josh or to Roger first, and then Josh to give little shout outs, and then I'll close it out.
Hey, well said, Luke. And, two things. One, you got to understand that when you talk about capitalism, you talk about communism, socialism, Marxism, these aren't created for racial equality. Okay. Know something about economics. These are measures of and methods of control of productivity, economic productivity. Who owns the economic productivity? Who owns the input? Who owns the output? That's what defines those forms of government, and what defines those economic systems. So nowhere in any of those do you see race mentioned anywhere. Okay, believe it or not, it's like what Luke said. It's all about the output. All right, it's all about the output, and that's why when you go back to you talk about Black Lives Matter, and you talk about colors, and you talk about SDS and Weather Underground, there is no mention of racial equality. It's all about U.S. imperialism. It's all about U.S. capitalism. All right. We're talking about economic, productivity control, inputs and outputs. So that's a whole different topic that we can expound on. Hopefully, I want to do one later on. Maybe we do a podcast on, actual some definitions and breakdowns of different types of governments and different types of economic systems and economic theories, because I think, one, we all conflate a lot. And two, for the younger generation, they just don't know. They don't know the difference, right? And you can go back and look up the memes about, communism and capitalism as far as owning the cow and owning the milk and all that other good stuff. But, I'll leave that for a later episode. My last shout out, and, I can't plug it hard enough. I wish I had the time to be a part of the book, but, our last episode, as we mentioned, as Luke led off with about Jerry LaRue Cole, buy the book, guys, gals, get out there, Google it, take a look at it. Pay the $13. The money cannot go towards a better cause. I'm not sure how much Luke and Josh are pocketing off this thing. I just noticed they have some new microphones and some new setups on here. So, I don't know what all the sales are getting so far, but, I posted on my social media page, on my page. I know they've got several posts on it, but, I encourage you to take a read. It's a very fast read. If you're veterans out there, you'll love it because you'll relate to a lot of it. That's kind of what makes me chuckle. And for those that aren't necessarily so in touch with the military, it's not the World War II days where everybody knows somebody who's deployed to combat or who's in the military or who's been in the military. It kind of gives them some insight and really personalizes, what a lot of us go through and, as men and women that have served and continue to serve. So, that's my last thing. Spend the $13, get on Amazon, order it. The money goes to a good cause, and with that, I'll throw it back to Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. A couple closing thoughts, shout outs. First, going back to what Luke said, you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't know what they're asking for. A lot of people in May 1966 in China, thought they knew what they were asking for, thought they knew what they wanted, and millions wound up dead. Through the Cultural Revolution in China when Mao came to power. So if you don't know what that is, if you haven't read about the Cultural Revolution in China, go read that. Read about the Red Guard. When they decided that we were going to defund the police, we were going to get rid of the police, and we're going to establish a Red Guard. I tell you, go read about what happened. You look at modern America TV shows. Go ahead and take a look at I don't know. Let's say The Walking Dead. You want to see what happens when, there are no police and, we get rid of the Electoral College and we allow mob rule. Go ahead and take a look at that. And if you want a bunch of Negans running around, because that's what you're going to get, right? That's what's going to happen. And so I was totally against, disbanding the police forces. I was completely 100% against, but I'm starting to warm up to the idea, because I think we could use a good 90 days of absolute anarchy, right? A good 90 days of no police. You don't get to call anybody. The only person you get one social worker, right? Everybody's issued a social worker's phone number. And if you get in trouble, that's who you call, right? We're going to test it out. 90 days. That's all I'm asking. 90 days, no law and order, to the victor go the spoils of war. And then let's see where everybody's at the 90 days. If the majority of people are still like, man, it's great, I don't need any police. All right, we're gonna another 90 days, and we'll just keep going until everybody is comfortable, either comfortable with, no police and it works, or, the fitter left standing, right? It just at a certain point, we need to go ahead and shit or get off the pot. If we're going to do this, let's go ahead and do it. And let's see how it works out. And, because I know that I'm going to be okay. I know my family's going to be okay. I don't think the person who doesn't know which bathroom to use, who hates guns, who doesn't own guns, I don't think they're going to fare very well. That's just it's a hunch on my part, but I don't think they're going to fare very well. The guy, the new Black Panthers that were at Stone Mountain, Georgia, the guy who had his little 22 looking AR-15 with the bolt already jammed and his finger on the trigger, I don't think he's going to last very long. Right? I don't think I just call me crazy, but I don't think he's going to last very long. So again, I appreciate Roger giving a shout out for the book. We're absolutely getting him in on the next one. It's going to a good cause. I think when I checked, I think Luke and I are making, I think maybe like $1.09 on on each book that's actually going in our pocket. So I'm not sending my kids to college. Luke's not taking a ski trip to Switzerland off of this thing. The man's getting his cut, and then the rest is going to help out those special operations veterans out there via the All Secure Foundation. So do us a favor, buy the book, leave us a review on Amazon, share it on your social media, talk to your friends and family, get it out there, because we'd love to get another one out right before Christmas time frame, if possible. We want to get other folks to donate their stories and get them in. Because as we talk about, everybody's got a story. Every veteran has one, and they deserve to be heard. They deserve to be told, and they deserve to be preserved, for future generations to read about the hard lives that we lived, at the Green Bean in Bagram on Disney Drive when they were out of their vanilla chai frappuccino lattes, whatever the hell those things are. So I appreciate it. I'll kick it back to Luke. He can close it out.
Thanks, Josh. Think about it, folks. Do you really want me, Roger, and Josh rolling around with baseball bats wrapped in barbed wire, taking half your shit? You don't want that, because that's exactly what we're going to do. So it's a good one. I forgot to do this earlier. Nostra Lucas speaks. Write this down, folks. Before the election, or maybe right after the election, the Electoral College will be labeled by a major news outlet as racist. Mark these words. That's my prediction. Electoral College is racist. Okay. In the interest of being transparent, once the initial sales go through, as we promised, I promised on the AJ Todd I would, and we'll do it on this podcast too. As soon as the initial sales go through, maybe next week, we'll give everybody an update on how much is going to the All Secure Foundation. And Josh and I kind of have this unwritten thing. It's like, okay, if it's paltry sales, we're just going to give it all to him, because in the name of Jerry Cole, it needs to be, it needs to be a decent amount. And we advertise this on Facebook and Instagram. That costs money, so we're really putting it back in. It's funny to joke about, but maybe we'll get to a point where 500,000 copies are sold, and then we can joke about who's getting the cut and all that stuff. So. Anyway, we'll be transparent with that. I want to give a thanks to Will. Thanks, Will, man. That's really generous of you, and it gives us a little extra motivation. It means a lot to us that you listen and keep us in your mind like that. And I'll put this out there too. If anybody wants to take this seriously and wants to lose a little weight, if you think you can beat me or Josh, or if you just want to keep us updated, maybe if you keep up with us within reason, maybe we'll send you a little swag when all this is done on September 4th. But I'll tell you real quick on that. It's been worth it so far, man. Thanks, Roger, for the motivation, because, man, I feel so much better. I really do, man.
Anytime.
Just eating better. I mean, it's easier to wake up in the morning. My body feels more in tune. It's just, it feels good. So thanks for that. And we'll keep going. Special shout out to my boy Titus. Let me tell you, buddy, there is an invisible soldier in the movie Aliens. This is my bully pulpit, and you can't say shit. So there you go. Folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for your time. Shout out to Carlton Zeus, as always, for that great intro music. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all your comments. We hope to see you next time on the Cup. Until then, keep your Canteen cups secured and have a good one.
Yeah, good. That's awesome.
You're fucking crazy, Josh, dude. Fucking crazy.
What?
Fucking crazy. So the Chinese going to come out in 10 years with a mind control
That's
app.
so fucking.
And Josh is going to be like, hey, man, I'm a private company, mind control, whatever. Can't tell me
No,
what
I
to
get his
download.
point. It's like the police thing. It's right.
I didn't say I was going to put it on my phone.
You deserve what you get. It's like you deserve what you get. So I get it from that aspect, but no, you can't.
Okay. All right.
That was a good one, man. I mean, dude, fucking, I could go off on this shit. I wrote like 2 pages of notes.
Dude,
here.
we were like an hour and a half on that.
Hey, man, the U.S. government has decided that that Clash of Clans is there may be some issues with it, so they're going to go ahead and ban that. Oh, you want your?
As long as it's constitutional, I hear what you're saying. I understand your point. I do, but as long as it's constitutional to do it, I mean, listening to some of the commentary on the possibilities of what could happen, I don't know, man. But it's like you said, man, dude, this is the point of these books I'm writing. If I ever get around to fucking writing them, it's like, hey, dude, you all get what you fucking deserve. You put this shit in place. You did this. You gave up all your rights. So you know what? Fuck it. Fuck you. You get what you deserve.
You know what? People want to take it, this. And it's like, hey, man, I'm not going to put it on my phone. Right? I'm not going to put it on my phone. Here's the government. The government should say, here are the threats. Here are the vulnerabilities.
Here's the thing, though. Think about
Make
this.
that choice.
Okay. Think about this. And I don't think we're at this point with TikTok yet, but I promise you we will get there within 8 years. Okay. Within 8 years, it will be at this point, what I'm about to describe. So let's say that this social media app is so influential. Let's say it gets to like an Instagram level or a Twitter level or a Facebook. It's a foreign company that can absolutely interfere in elections. It can absolutely do that. Facebook's already there. They can do it. They have the ability to do it. No one's stopping China from doing that. So it's like at that point, because dude, I'm telling you, it's already there. It's going to happen. It's gonna fucking happen. It's a foreign company.
Every social media app is already there.
But the ones we're talking about are Rogers' private company that are U.S. companies. This is a Chinese company that is basically beholden to its own government. They have to do what they say. So it's like if they can interfere in the elections, I don't think we're there yet. But we are so fucking close.
So Josh, you're fine with bringing Huawei. You're fine with Huawei devices being allowed in the U.S. being used. You're good with that?
How many fucking Lenovo computers are in the United States?
No, don't deflect. That's another issue. Ban them too. But you're fine with Huawei.
Huawei coming in? Hey man, you want to bring Huawei in?
See,
I have no issue with it. Don't process. Don't use it for the government.
You won't have a choice because you won't have a choice at that point. Because if you look at how, if Huawei came in like they're trying to come in, they're coming in Serbia like this, and Europe's trying to hold them off, but it's so cheap. The Europeans are like, how can we not do this? Right? The problem is, when all this Huawei stuff comes in, that's the backbone. So you don't have a choice whether you use it or not.
Right.
When you're bouncing off different towers, you're going to bounce off a Huawei tower. Oh, and another thing, Huawei can turn it off whenever they want.
Right. So that's a good point, right? So if I don't have a choice whether I can use it or not, then no, don't let them in. But if I have a choice, I can download that app on my phone or I can't. I don't have to. I have a choice. If I don't have a choice in Huawei, then no, they shouldn't be allowed in.
Boy, oh boy. What if the Chinese government, how about this? And we're not there yet. Now we're just what ifing. But like, what if Chinese government, TikTok, quadruples their following by 2024, and the Chinese government starts sinking a lot of money into backing one particular candidate? I mean, it's foreign interference in an election.
Do you think that does it already happen?
Not
Do you
on
think
that
foreign
level.
governments don't? Do you
Well,
think
it
foreign
did in the
governments?
last election. It did in the last election. But the thing is, Russia had to use Facebook to do that. China is going to have its own social media platform where they can do whatever the fuck they want. I mean, yes, of course, they do it every year. I know. But I mean, 34 million, 18 to 25, it's negligible right now. But I mean, fuck, man. What they can do with this. And remember, I mean, Chinese are like 50-year ahead thinkers, man. They're not thinking like 5, like the Russians are thinking maybe 8 years ahead. Chinese,
No,
dude,
I know that.
we got it. This is fucked. It's fucked, dude.
No,
right,
actually,
hey,
I think we're good. I think we're good because
let's get rid of everything, every electronic device that emits a signal from China. Let's fucking ban it today. I'm on board. You changed my mind. Let's fucking do it.
I think we're good because Joe Biden said that they're not a threat, so I'm not worried about it.
Well, another thing, Josh, is they actually, FTC and DOJ are investigating them for actually breaking a law. So, I mean,
Okay.
I mean, so if they've broken a law, I mean,
If they've broken a law, then
still,
absolutely. If they have broken a law, then I'm on board with punishing them. And punishing them means banning them. Then ban them.
That's what
I think
fucking
Josh-
malicious software is. What? Jesus Christ! That's what they're being banned for, is breaking the fucking law.
That's a good discussion. I think people are going to like this one if they listen to it. I think
Well,
they're
I'm
going to like it.
I'm hoping the Chinese are listening right now so we can get some more listeners.
Yeah, if we can break into that market.
Hey, we're gonna get our anchor platform, and it's gonna be like China, 500. Right?
You watch. I mentioned India in this one. You watch that one fucking Indian living in the fucking Slumdog Millionaire is gonna go tell everybody, and we're gonna fucking quadruple our audience size. They mentioned India. Oh my god! You watch, man. Fucking India, dude. India. That's a big market, man. It's one of the biggest markets in the world.
What do y'all want to ban next? What are we gonna ban next? We're banning shit today.
Are we talking about foreign companies?
Well, no, because that's not where this ends. So let's talk about
Using slippery slope. That's a logical fallacy. It's a foreign
because that's where
company
this
that's
ends.
a threat to national security. I mean, to me, it's pretty straightforward.
So what if it's not a foreign company, but it's a threat to national security?
You absolutely could ban them at that point. You absolutely can shut them,
right? They'd be breaking a law,
Yeah.
doing whatever.
Yeah. No. Maybe they haven't broken the law. Maybe they're just a threat.
So how are they a threat not breaking the law? Like what? Like you have to give me some specifics on that.
No, I'll give you some specifics on that.
Hey, I'm just talking future because we're gonna get there.
I'm talking right now. Why do you think Google and Facebook are sweating so hard right now? Not over the past few years, because they were used as instruments. And what's his name? O'Keefe is doing all these investigations on. Hey, you interfered with the fucking election. That means we can fucking break you up. The U.S. government can come and stamp on your fucking neck.
Yep.
But there's nothing stopping the Chinese or any foreign country from doing that.
On your neck.
Oh, you can't?
No.
I forgot to mention your
racist.
Florida State thing. Dude, I was looking at that thread. Dude, you just Josh, Indiana Jones when he jumps in that snake pit. That was Josh the other. He fucking on the Florida State page, he jumped into the fucking snake pit. And I was like, are you fucking nuts? He started posting. I was like, oh. It was funny though, Roger, because they were saying the same thing he was saying just a second ago. Well, they were arguing, and Josh was saying the same thing he was a minute ago about, hey, look at the stats. And he started posting the actual stats, from the FBI's website, and they just started ignoring him.
Oh yeah.
They did not address him anymore.
Why would
Nobody
you?
likes facts,
Right?
man.
Nobody
likes facts. Facts don't care about your feelings.
Nope. And so I'm like, hey, I throw the numbers up there. And that's the conversation I had with my daughter today. I said, look, I get it. I'm the ultimate, contrarian and this and that. I said, the whole point is, do your due diligence, and wherever the facts lead you, that's where I take you. Don't just take it at face value. They say this, that, or the other. Okay, where'd you get that from? Well, it was like the one lady, I think, Josh, you were in that post with me. She's like, when I posted the murder stats, where'd you get that from? I'm like, Statista or whatever the fuck it was. And she's like, oh, there we go. That was a good source. I'm like, all right. I said, you want to really walk down this rabbit hole? Okay, well, I'll fucking play. Well, they got their stats
crazy.
from the Washington Post, right? And then I said, hey, where do they get their stuff from? Oh, they actually got it from the CDC and they got it from the FBI. And then where do they get it from? And then it was like, you're just full of shit. It's like, oh, okay, there we go. There we go. Let's just get down to
so today. I posted something today about there was somebody commented, about somebody posted a Daily Wire article about how the CDC is like, hey man, COVID-19 is no longer a pandemic.
Right. Exactly.
And somebody chimed in and was like, oh, the Daily Wire it's a right-wing rag full of misinformation, and fucking alternate facts. And so I opened the Daily Wire article, fucking clicked on the CDC where it said the CDC reported, right? Clicked on CDC, brought up the CDC report, which said, yeah, it's no longer a pandemic. And then posted, replied to that person and was like, you're too fucking stupid to even open up the article, which it cites the CDC article. So do you believe the CDC if you believe the CDC article, then believe the Daily Wire article that references the fucking CDC report, right? It's like people are so obtuse that they don't care. The facts don't matter. It's a fucking whatever. It's, my belief. And that's the uneducated voter. That's the uneducated voters that the founding fathers had to guard against because people are too fucking stupid. You go back to the movie Lincoln, right? When Thaddeus Stevens is sitting in, they're in the basement. And he has that conversation with Lincoln. And he was like, shit on the people. They don't know what they want. I know what they want. I can take care of them better than they can themselves. And that's, while that absolutely goes against everything, in my being, right? Because at the end of the day, at this point in time, all we did was trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away. That's what we did, right? And that's why I think term limits are absolutely something that needs to be had. I think allowing these fucking people, the McConnells and the Pelosi's, to sit in there for decades. You said I meant to respond back to you, and I got shiny objects sidetracked.
I'm glad you didn't. I don't even want to go down this rabbit hole. I got one question for you. How come your connectivity wasn't this fucking good during the podcast recording?
Yeah, no shit, man.
The weather cleared up. I can see blue sky.
Oh God. So back to the COVID thing. I got to be careful because we're still recording here. So people are freaking out here again. Okay, and the organization that I don't work for them, Roger. I work with them. They put out this report today that said it was like a doom and gloom report, and it was like there has been a 900% increase within the past 2 weeks. 875% increase in, this and that. And I'm like, okay, how many hospitalizations are there? Okay, there's 11. How many ICU? 0. How many deaths? There hasn't been a death in 3 weeks here. But they're talking about not only the country, but where I work, they're going to lock it down again, dude. We're going to go to like 20% manning again. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? And then on Monday, we're having our meeting. We're having our little DOD meeting. And the second in charge, you got the boss, the big boss. The big boss is out of the country. So the second in charge never comes up to our office. But she buzzed into our office, right? And so I see who it is on the little monitor. And I'm like, dude, it's her. I'm talking to the dad. And I'm like, dude, it's her. Let's put our masks on. He jumps up before I have a chance to put my mask on and lets her in. And we work in this small little space. Dude, she lit into us because only one of us was wearing our mask. This stupid dumbass officer was wearing his mask. And she lit into us because you need to be wearing your masks. Every one of you. You're in an enclosed space. And yeah. And she even called the dad down for a little talking to later. And it's like, people like that. I said this. I was so mad when she left. I was like, she will live like this for the rest of her life if she's told to do it. This is her new normal. And if they told her she had to live, this is exactly how she'd live because she's happy. This is their war, dude. You think about this organization. Think about this organization that I'm in, right? This to them is their war. They're in the shit now. So it's like, it's so pathetic, man.
Here's where we're at, because our Jim went to court yesterday, and the judge came back, and I think I posted on Facebook, and the judge came back and said, nope, got to shut the gym down. because not that the executive order was legal or illegal. I didn't see the actual ruling on it, but the quote from the judge was, "You haven't showed irreparable injury to your company," which means that they're going to go broke. I guess that's not good enough. But here's how nuts it is out here, and I'll leave this as a final thought for our YouTube premium content members here. The gym is closed down. Tomorrow, casinos open up. Makes a lot of sense. So with that being said, hey, for those of you that are watching YouTube, this is our first actual recording that we're doing on YouTube. So this is some, little premium content. So you should see the unedited podcast and all of our fuck ups and everything else. And hopefully when we do these recordings, we'll have a few minutes extra to bring some more entertainment to your day. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next time, we'll see you.